4th of the 3rd, 1929.
Cork in Ireland, 1920. You wanted the month, January.
My dad was in the army, went into the war. My mum was there, like, all the time, with me 3 brothers.
Father was a public health officer in the city corporation. And then my mum was looking after there was 3 brothers older than me.
The eldest brother, Ron.
What kind of
He was
things
a
did you
year
do?
older than me. Pardon?
What kind of things did you do?
Well, if I went to the pictures, he used to come down and meet me, and all sorts of that and things like that. The other brothers wouldn't have said, no, I'm not coming down there that time of the night, Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go on to the pictures, you know what I mean? If he didn't, because he was older. But he used to look after me, like.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Did you spend much time with your brothers?
No, not with the brothers. See them, of course. They play sport and all that. As the young fellas, we were all living in Cork. It's right in the centre of the city. And played football and see them and kick a ball or kick whatever you do, you know what I mean? Just after school and see them.
Did you like school?
No.
The head teacher, Mrs. Cameron, she said, you'll have to go over and pick the apples up that are fallen off the tree. Put them in the buckets for me, she said, for being naughty. The 2 of us, like, for talking, And went over there a week. She said, you can have an apple each, she said, and we go back to school and behave yourselves and don't keep talking so much. But they all do that, I mean, they're all talking, the whole lot of them. But mind the boys got punished a lot more than the girls did, They did get the cane, So lucky I was a girl.
Our trouble was the teachers. Some were monks and some were men, like orderly men. And they were a bit hard cases. They didn't care where and when they hit you, like, you know what I mean? I think it put me off. I left when I was about 13 and a half, 14.
What was your favourite subject at school?
English,
Why?
writing. I liked sewing. And we used to do rug making. I used to like that.
We didn't get subjects now the same as they get now. It was a bit of, as you call it, maths. We'd call it spelling and sums and things like that. You know what I mean? It was okay, not bad. Played a lot of football, and football was always the thing. Like, you know what I mean? We played, and go to the cinema. Everything is in the city. Everything you wanted, the cinemas. When you get older, the dancing halls and all that. Everything was there. And the opera house. There was an opera house.
Do you remember a particular film that stood out for you? Do you remember a particular film?
One was, I saw, after the war when I come home, Gone with the Wind. That was one of the Civil War in America, But there was the singers then, at that time, Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, dancers. They used to come in, all the up-to-date ones. You see them every week. There was about 10 cinemas in Cork. And you see them regular. And singers, Jenna MacDonald, Nelson Eddy, all that. Plenty of that stuff. We were brought up on American cinemas, and the boxing that used to be then when there was boxers, the World Championships. They'd box on a night, and about 2 nights after we could see it in one of the cinemas.
Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you have any ambitions?
Not really. Not because the war came on, when I was 10. I was 10 then. And you never had that in your head, thinking about what was going to happen, during the war. And so we just left. I left at 14. But I went into a shop in Salisbury, Fletcher's, photographer shop. And I was a year in there because I wasn't earning much then because I was only on probation, like, you know, for so long. But the bus fares, with your bit of money you got, all my money went in bus fares, getting in and out of there. I left because I wasn't good travelling on the bus, going in and out of Salisbury because it was around the Woodford Valley. So turns.
When you got a bit older then, a little bit older, the city corporation used to put on, well, all the family. The father before him, he was a corporation, in the city corporation then, you know what I mean? But other than that, that was it. You can call it a job. It was, again, you do so many weeks with the city corporation. They'd be doing building jobs and all like that.
Yeah.
And that was it. And that didn't, then you may not have a job, then you could, because in Ireland, things were very, they were a poor nation, really.
Yeah.
4 of us were up in Dublin, and the All-Ireland hurling match was playing. And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. I think we were doing a late breakfast, and over the radio, Britain have declared war on Germany.
And well, I mean, you're only a kid, but you know that they've been talking about the war coming. You know what I mean? We knew it was going to happen sometime, and it did. But more than anything was the bombs. You know, later on, when they started dropping bombs, you didn't know what was going to happen. Got a bit scary then, you know, because we used to have gas masks for school. And we used to have a little place outside where you can go down if anything happened, shelter. But also you had sirens going, you know, and let you know they were coming over. But apart from that, you know, just wait for things sort of to come along.
Myself and my mother's step brother, he was about 8 years older than me. And another one of the lads, Paddy Crowley. I didn't tell nobody knew it. I got a half a ticket from an ex-soldier that had one, and it was to go up to Dublin and further on up to Belfast. So he gave it to me. So we went on the train, the 3 of us, and travelled up to Belfast. Anyway, they said to me then, that you're going to the front of people. What do you want to do? What do you want to join? You're a fine lad, one fellow said to me. Join the Irish Guards. I said, no. He said, what? I said, the artillery. Why? I said, my dad was artillery in the Great War. So I got that. The uncle had been turned down, varicose veins and different things that didn't suit him. So I didn't see him then anymore. The other lad joined the infantry. I tried to get him to come with me, but they said only one. He didn't go. So I didn't see him then. They take you upstairs, then half a dozen of you later on, and you get a shilling. It was the king shilling. You have to put your hand up and so it is. That night, had to give me a thing to go in and get fish and chips. I was on a boat, and I left Liverpool. I went from Belfast over to Liverpool that night.
Get stray bombs and things. What we did have a landmine drop, meant for Lark Hill. That was the camp, and it went down over the corner of the woods. If you go there now, it's a great big crater where it went down. And one of the fellows driving his tractor went over in it on the farm, because I suppose it grown up into weeds. Didn't realise it was a hole there. So, and our house shook. You know what I mean? Oh God, dropping their bombs, you know. But my mum got a bit scared then. She said, I don't want that any closer, she said. So we had a little air raid started, but it was small, and it was it's breathing, you know what I mean, into it. And there was all of us, and there was a lot of us up there then, children and all, but they all had their own different ones. But it was where you are here, but there was chalk. The men done it out and put a thing over the top and concrete it over the top. But it wasn't. It was horrible in the damp. Oh goodness! I said, "Well, you're better off in your wash house there." Wasn't much left of that, she said, if something happened. But I don't think you're safe anywhere, really. You know what I mean? Because it's like people in their own houses. They went down into the basement places, especially in London and that. But then they got bombed, and all that top pack come down on them, suffocated them. So there's no. I don't like these kind of shelters now. I don't think they were very good.
Following morning, I'm on the train into London, and I was down South End, Shoeburyness, a big artillery. It was a big artillery. There was thousands of people there.
They used to have the air raid wardens going around, and they were local people around the area. And they used to say, if they see a little light in the window, and tap on your window, and they shout out who they are. Get that light out. You can see that, you know, the aircraft can see. This little bit. It was a bit scary, wasn't it? At the time we could hear the planes coming over. You know, going to London, you could hear the droning of them. They had a different kind of a sound to our planes. But then you used to hear ours going out over at night. You know, coming along from all the stations around. But I used to think, gosh, them poor devils going over there now to do that. They don't want to be bombing people, but they've started it now on these places, so they've got to go back and do something to theirs, you know what I mean? There's only civilians getting killed, you know. The wrong ones really getting killed. Hitler and all that lot, you know, should have been done away with before the war ever started, really. And then there wouldn't be no war. But one of these things that happens, isn't it?
So how did it feel leaving your family behind?
I don't think. They never thought. They never knew we were going, but then you do the obvious thing. You write as quick as you can and all that, and you feel, why did I did this anyway? Because when you're under your training, then they're putting you through your paces. You think, what did I get myself into? Like, you know what I mean?
Really true. I used to write to my dad, you know. I was the only one out of the four of us that used to write to him, really. Man used to take weeks getting letters because we didn't know exactly where he was. And my mum used to write her letters too. She said, I don't suppose you'll get that for a couple of months, 3 months. And could be moved on to somewhere else before it's caught up with him. But, so you don't know what was really going on, you know what I mean? Because my dad was out in France as well. He was in Germany, France, Holland, Belgium, those places. But no, I mean, you know, he knew he had to go in, you know what I mean, because he was a reservist. That's it. But then, of course, he was at that age, and he was 35, where you don't want to go into wars, do you? Really? But and he came home all right anyway. That was a good blessing, wasn't it?
Well, having joined the regiment then, we went abroad and had to go up to Liverpool on a Sunday. I always remember it, Sunday, 1942. The war now was really on, like different things. And we set sail for I don't know where. And after a couple of weeks out, the naval destroyers, you'd have a destroyer or a corvette or whatever, a lot of ships, thousands aboard. So, cut a long story short, I ended up in Durban in South Africa.
Well, next door to me, Mum used to say, good, look, Mrs. This is my rations, she says, for the week. I'm getting in my, look, hands like that, she said. It was true, I need 2 ounces of this and 2 ounces of that, you know what I mean, I had to make it last a week. And she said, if I go down, can I come in to you? She said, God, I got 4 here to feed, she said, besides myself. But we seemed to manage though, you know what I mean? We had a bit of a laugh over things and that, but I suppose there wasn't much to laugh about really because of people getting, then of course the bombing of London and all them places came along, you know. And there wasn't much to laugh about then. But we were lucky, we were really lucky around this way.
Did you listen out on the radio? Did you hear?
Oh yeah, we heard the radio. We had the radio on, yeah, because there wasn't no televisions. We had the radio on quite a lot, you know, to hear what was going on and where they got to, how far they got in places.
We were there about 6 weeks. Then we ended up in Bombay. Then we went somewhere else down southern India. The Japanese in the meantime had most of the stuff going on across the water in Burma. And we were doing training, and then eventually we went up into action.
You couldn't go out really on your own because you were surrounded by troops all in the fields. My mum said you're not to go down walking down them roads on your own. So as my brothers used to come down along, you know, Ron, and he might have a mate too that used to come up to him. So they used to walk down along, and then he used to say, "Where are you going?" I say, "Oh, so and so, some girl's place." He said, "Well, what time you be? Oh, I'll come up and pick you up then." And we go back together. So it was a bit scary, you know. I mean, all the roads were covered in lorries and tanks. I mean, and the fields were absolutely a mass of soldiers, and we used to get the Welsh, Australians, Canadians. They were all there, all mixed. Polish were down in the Abbey. Canadians were down in the Abbey. And, I mean, you know, you've got to watch your step with them all.
You're always longing to go home, but you get so wrapped up with your friends, and you'd have very good friends because you depended on each other. You probably see some of the war pictures. I know the Yanks do a bit over the top with the way they carry, but you do get very, because you're dependent on each other, you see.
I think, I don't know, we were going, one time when I worked down in this factory place, you know, telling about the piston rings and that they were, going back home, there was, I used to go up home for lunch, you know what I mean, because I used to go, and the girls said, "We'll come up," half a dozen, "We'll come up and meet you," she says. I says, "All right then." I said, "Well, come up and meet me, not just around the corner," I said. But anyway, going along there, because it was this fella, and he was Canadian soldier. He had a Jeep, and he used to go up the avenue, and he'd wait for me to come back, and he stopped me to, you know, I said, "Will you go on?" I says. And, no, I want to take you to the pictures. I thought, oh gosh, you know. I thought, where's my mates now? They're nowhere to be seen, you know, when I want them. And then round the corner, up the avenue, they're coming up the hill, and oh, look, she's in there. You could hear her voice shout, "Look, she's in trouble, she's up there now," you know. Pat, her name was. And we used to have a laugh at her. And she said, I said, "Look, this is my friend here. No, this girl here," I said, "she's older than me." So I said, "You can take her to the pit." And she starts giggling. She said, "I'm not older than you." She was older. He said, "No, if I take her, I'd be had up for kidnapping," he said. He thought I was older than him. So we were just having a laugh.
The actions you go in, anything can happen anytime. You have an instance of, see, the artillery are different with the we used to be plunked together with the infantry. The Burma campaign was jungle. It was different to, like you see, the Great War, you know what I mean? You'd be bungled together. We didn't have the guns because we couldn't use them. So we had something like this now, a tripod, and we would use down the muzzle. You'd have the thing and boom, and it would go flying over. You do that, then you go somewhere else. And some of it was bad, could have been worse. I mean, you know, it could have been a lot worse. One action I remember, and the following morning one of the lads said to me, "Both your ears are bleeding." So I had to go back down the line, as they called it, and it was, both ears were perforated. It was from the noise, the shelling and the different things like was happening. And But they didn't. They put me in for a week into the hospital and put stuff in my ears and let me out again. And I wanted to get back to where the lads were. You want to get back to where your own are, you know what I mean? And also, so it was bad, but it could have been a lot worse. Comradeship, it was okay. Wherever you were with a bunch of lads. You do whatever you had to do, even before you go up into action. You know what I mean? So it's okay. We're about 2 years in action. The other rest was training. I down to come back, and as I said, when the war ended, we were actually, everything got quiet then. There was throws and then they were kind of getting the Japanese to take surrender. Well, I think what finished everything about the war was an atom bomb was dropped. The Japs wouldn't surrender. They'd killed a lot of innocent people, of course. Of course, the Japs done similar things. They bombed Pearl Harbor, and that's how they got into the war. Worst thing they ever done. And I always remember reading about an admiral, the naval admiral, where they were all sat at the table, and he said, "You've wakened a giant, and you'll be sorry." And he was the Japanese. They did. That was the biggest mistake, but it was the best mistake for Europe, for us here in Britain, because there was nobody. The Germans had everything. They took over all places, Poland, Holland, France. They took over everything. Then the next big mistake was Hitler, Germany, invading Russia. Then they were caught in the winters of Russia. That's what finished both the Germans and the Japs, making a mistake on that, the Yanks. They opened up. They were building ships and aeroplanes by the dozen every day, see? And they were all coming then over here to Britain, you see. There was hundreds of thousands of them over here. They landed D-Day then. They done the D-Day from here and went from parts of southern England straight over to France and went on from there then. You know what I mean?
So how did you find out the war was over? How did you know about it?
Well, it was announced on the radio, but then you sort of stop and think though, is it true? It can't all be stopped together. You know what I mean? There must be some fighting. I haven't even heard about it, because where your granddad was, like, you know what I mean? They hadn't heard about it for a long time afterwards, and they had to stay there, and the Japs were still fighting them. You know what I mean? So you can't. Not then you couldn't. You know what I mean? You couldn't believe it stopped. And you think to yourself, all them fellas getting killed for what? For what? It's only greed it was, really. He wanted to take over all the countries he could, you know. And one man's greed, really. Yeah.
How did you feel when you got home, when you heard it was over? What was your reaction?
Well, I know my mum had a few tears. She was glad to see the end of it. Because you do think of people, you know, people in the village, they're in the army. Lucky enough, I had cousins in the army, but they came home all right. But there was a few of them that didn't. A woman I knew, Mrs. Ware, she lost 2 of her sons within 3 months of each other. 2 of her sons. Then another woman lost her son. Then because you gradually get to hear of other ones. They were reported missing, but they're pronounced dead, like. So there was quite a few from here. You've got a memorial up in Amesbury there, by the church. Tells you how many of them did get killed. But that's only in one little place, isn't it? You can imagine it, like the towns, Salisbury and all them places, like Southampton. Southampton got a knocking around, and that's not far from here, is it?
What was life like after the war ended?
Very quiet, really, it was, you know, after the parties and things. Very quiet. It took a long time getting back to proper food, you know what I mean? It was all tinned things we had to eat. But then the schooling was couldn't get things for the schooling, really, you know what I mean, when during the war, what you needed. But it sort of started changing for the better then, you know. Took a long time.
Well, it was a bit, I suppose, there was a lot of money. There was, there was still unemployment and things. Then it began to pick up. But having said that, I come over here then, after being at home. I come over here in 1946. And there was plenty, there seemed to be plenty of work then, like, again, you know what I mean? But of course there was a lot of...
Well, it's rebuilding.
Yeah.
Like all the time.
I mean, a lot of the big places, Coventry, Liverpool, Southampton, London, in a mess. They had to build a whole lot. So there was plenty of work then started, you know.
Before you met Nan, did you ever see anybody else?
No. I saw him by looking at him, but as for... don't forget, I was mature before I even married, 32-year-old. So I had more sense, like, staying up that long, you know. But your Nan caught me then.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't go out with anybody else. I didn't. You know, wanted to ask me. I wouldn't go out with them. They're local, like, you know. I didn't like local lads. I knew too much about them, like.
What was your happiest memory together?
Well, I suppose when Terry was born,
Yeah.
would have been one of them. In Salisbury, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was born in the hospital.
Yes.
And before, it was the small hours of the morning, that's all happened. And there was one taxi here in the village, just one, had already pre-booked, went down small hours of the, must have been 12 o'clock or something like that, at night. And he never come out, he wouldn't get out.
No,
So we knew a friend of our dad's whose son from Canada was with him, and I had met him, and I got in touch with him, and he took us into Salisbury.
Thick fog it was all the way, wasn't it?
Yeah, he took us into Salisbury.
It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, I think I had him.
So that was Terry.
How did you feel when he was born?
I was a little bit disappointed.
Well,
I shouldn't say that, but I
was hard going
I
for
wanted a girl,
your
really.
nan, I suppose, but me.
No, I was a little bit disappointed because it was a boy. I wanted a girl. I always thought I had having a girl, but the nurse says, "Well, you've got to put up with him." She said, "Your next one will be a girl." So they don't give me much chance. And but no, and then Terry, Eugene came along then. 2 years, 3 months after, I think, something like that. And then didn't think about it no more, you know what I mean? I thought, well, your side's got all boys. I got mostly boys on our side of the family. And I thought that's how it goes. But of course, waiting another 10 years, then Georgina came along.
Then yeah.
And your dad says to me then, like I told you, he said it was going to, he swore it was a girl, it's going to be a girl, you know, all the way.
I was there when she was born with the nurse, and the nurse said to me, "She's big, isn't she?" And all she done was put her on a little
baby scales. Yeah.
a cloth and weighed her. I thought, what am I looking at? It looked to me 11.5 pounds. She brought it in at 10.13. I said, that's heavier than that. That's only a little rag. And she brought in at 10.13. Yeah. She was that big. Yeah.
Eugene was 11.4.
Yeah, Eugene was 11.
Terry was 8.4.
So how long were you together before you got married?
About 4 years.
How old were you when you got married?
22. Nearly 23.
How did your parents feel about him?
I'm not too sure. My mum was all right. She was just nothing. My dad was a little bit, you know, a little bit hard on him, I suppose, really, because he said, well, you don't even know him, which is true, I didn't really. I said, because he's Irish, I suppose you don't like him, you know. And it isn't that, he said, you don't even know the fella. He could be a married man for all you know, my dad, you know. And they put the worst into it, you know, all the time. So I says, my mum said, oh, for goodness sake, Bob, don't talk so silly, you know. But anyway, she got to find her own feet on things, you know. But no, he wasn't. But then he went, after a time, he went back to Ireland again. And of course my dad thought, oh yeah, he's scarpered back over now, he doesn't want no, like, he has everything wrong. And so he wrote a letter, I wrote a letter back, and then I didn't bother writing. I don't think I did. I wrote another letter. And one of his mates at the works, up the Naffy system, it was his best mate, one of them, he was up there. He said, he's not coming back, you know, Vi. I says, well, what can I do about it? I says, what can I do about it? He said, didn't he tell her? He said, he's going home, stay. I says, no. I said, don't worry. I said, if you get caught out, he says, I'll take you to the pictures. He said, oh, for goodness sake, you know, they carry on, you know. But anyway, that was that. But he did come back over. You know what I mean?
You've been married 61 years?
Yep.
Does it feel like that long?
No, I don't think it does. No. Not to me, it don't. It might to your dad, I suppose. But not me. No, I don't. No, I don't feel it has at all. It's a long time, really, isn't it? When you think of it, 61 years. Still, we had a nice card from the Queen, didn't we? She hasn't wrote since. Hasn't sent me anything. No invites up.
Did you have a honeymoon?
Yeah, we went down to Portsmouth, down to South Sea. And we were there for a week. And then we went over to the Isle of Wight. We were there for 7 days. I liked it. And ever since I've been over there, you know, a couple of times I have been. I like the Isle of Wight. It's a nice little place. Mm.
How old were you when you got married?
32.
Did your parents approve of you getting married?
They knew nothing about it. They weren't even at the wedding.
It's only your mum, wasn't she alive then?
They knew about it. It went over after. Well, I reneged that one. You come over before we married, didn't you? Yeah. You tell that story.
I forgot that. Yeah, I went over when I was 18.
1948.
I'm looking at you, especially. And my dad says to me, you would never go on your own, you know. And I said, you want to bet me? I said, he said, no, I don't want to do any betting. He said, but I know you won't go. But he was surprised when he came home from work and I was gone.
How different would your life have been if the war hadn't have happened?
Well, we wouldn't have met, would we?
No, probably not.
Well, not if the war wouldn't have happened. I definitely wouldn't have been. How it started, I was on what they call demob leave, 1946, where you get they fit you out with clothes and different things like that. And I was at home on demob leave, 1946 early, and a knock at the door. As I opened it, and there was a man and a girl there. She would have been about my age at the time, 23, 22. She was about a year or two younger then. He said, yeah, I'm his brother. We haven't met since the Great War, he said. We were in 30 years ago. That was Eugene. Anyway, they stayed a couple of weeks. And then as they were going home, they said to me, will you be coming back to England? I wasn't really sure because I hadn't been in England. I joined Belfast, over to England, done training, then went out abroad, you see. But I did, and it was November 46. I did come back, and I said, where are you living? He said, we're living in Durrington in Wiltshire. Could have been anywhere now. My geography on where they were living. But it happened to be, as you know. So I did come back and I stayed with them then and went to work down the Naffy. Lasted what? About 20 months.
I know
Yeah,
it wasn't long, was
20 months, and I went back home. And mother was on her own then. She wasn't well or something. And then I stayed there for another year or so like
Well,
that.
your mother
too.
came over though, didn't she? A couple
You
of
in the
times?
meantime then come over, didn't you?
Yeah.
You come over then. Well, it was a Sunday. I remember it was a Sunday evening, and we had a cinema down the bottom. And your nan was on the steps on her own, so I just went over to her and said hello, because only just like to see it, because we worked up in the Naffy. That was Navy, Army, and Air Force Institute. They used to supply all the stuff to the things. And then we walked along. I don't know whether she wanted to do it or not, but we walked along.
I wasn't sure.
Went up around Ryan over the bridge and went up along there where she lived, then turned back, and her mum and dad, she said, were in the Legion, British Legion, so she went in, I walked on. That was the first time.
Oh, you didn't used to speak up the Naffy?
Hardly, did we?
Well, we used to just say hello.
You were working at one
Hello.
end and
Hello.
we were at the
I
others,
was
in
weighing
and
you
out,
up.
loading up the lorries and that, you know.
What has been your happiest memory?
Oh, you're
The
asking.
best part of your life?
I don't know. I can't tell. I can't think of any best part.
Okay, are you happy with how things are now? Would you change anything?
No. No, I wouldn't. No. Unless I met a rich man, a very rich man. I think he's got to hear all this, and he'll say, "My God, is that what she thinks of me now?" Smiles sometimes.